Rain hammered against the cobblestone streets of Ravenshire, a forgotten place where ancient manors loomed like silent sentinels against the night sky. The storm had swept in suddenly, driving most indoors, but Rose Davenport had nowhere to go. Her soaked dress clung to her trembling frame as she stumbled forward, one hand pressed against the gash in her side where her stepbrother's knife had found its mark. "Just a little farther," she whispered, though she had no destination. The family that should have protected her had turned on her the moment her father died, leaving her penniless and accused of thievery to justify their cruelty. The wound was deep. Each heartbeat pushed more of her life onto the rain-slicked stones beneath her feet. Rose knew she was dying. Her vision blurred as she collapsed against the wrought iron fence surrounding Thornwood Manor, a place locals avoided with superstitious fear. Tales of its master had circulated for generations, impossible tales of a being who had walked these grounds for centuries. "Monsters," she murmured, her consciousness fading. "At least they're honest about what they are." For 23 years, Rose had believed in humanity's goodness despite evidence to the contrary. Tonight had finally proven her wrong. Her last thought before darkness claimed her was how fitting it seemed to die at the gates of a monster's lair, betrayed by those who should have loved her. High above in Thornwood Manor, Lord Aleksander Voss stood at his window, watching the storm rage. 600 years of existence had taught him patience, but these recent decades of isolation had tested even his resolve. The world had changed, becoming louder, brighter, leaving little room for beings like him to exist without scrutiny. "Humans," he scoffed, "so fragile, so temporary." He had long ago decided they were unworthy of his attention, useful only for sustenance, never connection. Humanity's brief candle held no allure for one who had watched civilizations rise and fall. Their betrayals, their wars, their petty cruelties had convinced him their hearts were as monstrous as any vampires, just weaker in execution. A flicker of movement at his gates caught his attention. Even through the storm, his enhanced vision could see the woman collapse, could smell the sweet copper scent of blood rising like steam from the cobblestones. Alexander turned away. Her death was not his concern. Humans died constantly, it was their defining feature. Yet something pulled him back to the window. Perhaps it was boredom, perhaps curiosity at what had brought a young woman to his gates in such a state. With a sigh that carried centuries of weariness, he descended from his tower. The front doors of Thornwood Manor opened for the first time in decades. The rain parted around him as if afraid to touch his skin. He reached the gates in moments, looking down at the crumpled form. Her heartbeat was faint, failing. The knife wound spoke of deliberate violence rather than accident. "Who did this to you?" he asked, not expecting a response. Her eyes fluttered open, deep amber irises filled with resignation rather than fear. "Does it matter? They won." Alexander felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Surprise, no terror at his presence, no pleading for salvation, just acceptance. "They have not won yet," he said, making a decision that would alter the course of his eternal existence. He lifted her effortlessly, one arm supporting her shoulders, the other beneath her knees. Blood seeped from her wound onto his white shirt, staining it crimson. The scent was intoxicating, not just the blood itself, but something within it, something ancient and familiar that should not exist in a modern human. As he carried her through the gates, they swung closed behind them. Thunder cracked overhead as if marking a covenant sealed. Inside Thornwood Manor, candles flickered to life along their path, illuminating stone corridors and grand halls that had stood silent for generations. Rose drifted in and out of consciousness, glimpsing ornate tapestries and portraits of solemn faces that seemed to watch her passage with interest. Alexander placed her on a chaise in his private chambers, a room few had ever entered. "You are dying," he stated matter-of-factly. "I can heal you, but there is a price." Her eyes focused on him with surprising clarity. "There is always a price. Not like this." He knelt beside her, studying her face. "Your blood, it carries something rare, something I have not encountered in centuries." "My grandmother," Rose whispered, She spoke of our family having the old blood. I thought it was nonsense. Alexander's eyes widened slightly. The Davenport line. I believed it extinct. Soon to be, she said with a weak smile. That depends on your choice. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a marble-pale forearm. My blood can heal you, but it will bind you to me. Not as a thrall or servant, but as something else. The old blood in your veins makes you uniquely compatible. Compatible for what? For survival. For power. For eternity, perhaps. He studied her face. Do you fear death, Rose Davenport? No, she answered honestly. I fear living without purpose. Alexander had not expected that answer. Humans typically begged for life at any cost when faced with death's proximity. This woman was different. Then I offer you purpose. Your blood contains secrets your ancestors kept hidden for generations. Secrets that could reshape the balance of power among my kind. Help me uncover them. And in exchange? Life, protection, knowledge. Rose felt the cold spreading through her limbs. The choice was simple. Die here or accept the offer of something unknown. Her short life had taught her that humanity's promises were often hollow. Perhaps a monster's bargain would prove more honest. I accept, she whispered. Without hesitation, Alexander bit into his wrist. Dark blood welled from the wound, thicker than human blood and carrying an electric current of power. He held it to her lips. Drink. The first drop touched her tongue like liquid fire, spreading through her dying body with impossible heat. Rose gasped but did not pull away. Instead, she drank deeper, compelled by instinct older than reason. As his blood entered her system, ancient magic awakened. The knife wound in her side began to close, flesh knitting together without a scar. Alexander watched in fascination. Most humans convulsed in agony when vampire blood entered their system, but Rose seemed to absorb it naturally, as if her body had been designed for this moment. When he finally pulled his wrist away, their eyes met. His midnight blue against her amber. Something passed between them, a recognition beyond words. The rain continued to hammer against the windows, but inside Thornwood Manor, something ancient had awakened. Rest, he commanded gently. Your body must adjust. As Rose drifted into sleep, Alexander touched her forehead, sensing the changes already beginning within her. The old blood was responding to his, creating something he had not witnessed in 6 centuries. Not a turning, not yet, but a communion between their essences. He had told her only part of the truth. The Davenport bloodline was indeed special, carrying traces of a covenant made between his kind and certain human families in the early days of vampiric history. Such bloodlines had been protected, cultivated, but most had died out through war or dilution. To find one now, pure enough to manifest such a strong reaction, was extraordinary. What he had not told her was that such blood bonds were irreversible. They were now connected in ways even he did not fully understand. He had acted on instinct, drawn by something beyond reason. For the first time in centuries, Lord Aleksander Voss felt uncertainty. He had saved her life on impulse, but in doing so, he had changed his own eternal existence in ways he could not yet comprehend. Dawn approached, and he retreated to his chambers, leaving Rose under the watchful eyes of his household staff, beings neither fully human nor vampire who had served him for generations. As he closed his eyes, he could feel her presence in his mind, a warm light where there had been only cold darkness for centuries. Rose awoke to sunlight filtering through heavy velvet curtains. For a moment, she believed herself dreaming. The bed beneath her was the softest she had ever known, the silk nightgown covering her body finer than anything she had ever owned. She sat up, expecting pain that never came. Her side, where the knife had penetrated, showed not even a scar. You heal remarkably fast, said a voice from the doorway. A woman stood there, her posture perfect, her ageless face showing neither youth nor age. I am Eleonora, Lord Voss's seneschal. I have served Thornwood Manor for 3 centuries. Rose stared, unable to hide her shock. You're not human, not vampire. Something in between. Eleonora approached, setting a tray of food beside the bed. Lord Voss requests your presence in the library once you have eaten and dressed. I have prepared suitable attire. Rose looked toward the wardrobe, which stood open to reveal dresses from various eras, all apparently unworn. These are beautiful, but they belong to no one, Eleonora assured her, seeming to read her discomfort. Lord Voss has maintained appearances for potential guests who never arrived. Until now. After Eleonora departed, Rose ate ravenously, surprised by her hunger. The food tasted more vibrant than she remembered, every flavor intensified. She chose the simplest dress she could find, a deep green velvet with minimal ornamentation, and followed the corridor toward what she hoped was the library. The manor revealed itself in daylight as a place of faded grandeur. Sunlight streamed through tall windows into rooms that had clearly been magnificent once, but now carried a gentle patina of neglect. Not dirty or decrepit, but preserved in a moment from decades past. She found the library by following a strange sense of certainty, as if she could feel Alexander's presence pulling her forward. The double doors opened at her touch, revealing a two-story room lined with thousands of books. A fire crackled in a massive stone fireplace, and before it stood Lord Voss. In darkness, she had not fully appreciated his appearance. Tall and broad-shouldered, he possessed an unearthly beauty that made her breath catch. His features were sharply aristocratic, framed by dark hair that fell to his shoulders. He wore no coat, just a white shirt and black trousers that emphasized his powerful build. "You should be resting," he said without turning. "I feel extraordinary." Rose approached slowly. "Whatever you did is incomplete," he interrupted, finally facing her. His eyes widened slightly at her appearance. The blood exchange had already begun to change her. Her skin glowed with subtle luminescence, her movements carried new grace, and her eyes, they had deepened in color, gaining flecks of gold among the amber. "What is happening to me?" Alexander gestured to a chair. "The truth is complicated. Your bloodline, the Davenports, descends from one of 12 families who entered into covenant with vampires a millennium ago. These families received certain benefits from the arrangement." "What benefits?" "Longevity, resistance to disease, enhanced senses. In exchange, they served as intermediaries between our worlds and provided willing sustenance." Rose processed this information with surprising calm. "My grandmother lived to be 104. Everyone called it remarkable. For a human, yes." Alexander paced before the fire. These covenant bloodlines were meant to be protected, but as vampires retreated from human society, many families were lost or forgotten. Some were deliberately hunted by those who feared their connection to our kind. "And now you are the last Davenport I know of, and your blood carries the full potential of the covenant. When I gave you my blood to heal you, it awakened dormant aspects of your heritage." Rose stood, moving toward him with newfound confidence. "You're not telling me everything." Alexander's expression betrayed nothing, but something flickered in his eyes. "The blood exchange created a bond between us. I can sense your emotions, your location. You likely feel the same toward me. And that's unusual? It is unheard of in modern times. Such bonds were sacred in the old days, formed only between vampires and humans of covenant blood. They were considered marriages of sorts, eternal partnerships." Rose's breath caught. "You married me without my knowledge?" "No." His voice sharpened. "The bond is forming, not formed. It requires further exchanges to complete. You remain free to leave, though your blood has changed enough that you would find the human world increasingly difficult to navigate." "What would happen if I stayed? If this bond completed?" Alexander's gaze intensified. "You would continue to transform. Not into a vampire, precisely, but something between human and immortal. Your lifespan would extend centuries. Your powers would grow. And you would be recognized among my kind as my bonded consort." "Consort?" Rose repeated, the word stirring something primitive within her. "Is that what you want? What I want has not mattered for centuries, he replied coolly. I acted to save your life because your blood called to mine. The choice of what happens next belongs to you. Rose approached the window, looking out over grounds that stretched toward distant forests. I have nowhere to go. My family tried to kill me for my inheritance. They would only try again. They would not survive the attempt, Aleksander stated with such casual certainty that Rose shivered. I know nothing about your world. Then learn. He moved closer, his presence sending waves of awareness through her altered senses. Stay at Thornwood. Recover your strength. Study our history. Then decide. Rose turned to face him. Is that all you desire from me? Study and decision. Something dangerous flashed across his features. Be careful, Rose Davenport. You play with fire you do not understand. Then help me understand, she challenged. You saved my life. You created this bond. Now you keep me at arm's length. What are you afraid of? Aleksander moved with inhuman speed, suddenly before her, his hand gently tilting her chin upward. I have existed for 6 centuries. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have loved and lost more times than you have drawn breath. And never, in all those years, has a blood bond formed without my deliberate intent. That makes you either a miracle or a threat. Rose did not flinch from his touch or his intensity. Perhaps I am both. A reluctant smile curved his lips. Perhaps indeed. He released her and stepped back. The Covenant bloodlines were created for a purpose beyond mere alliance. They were meant to produce partners capable of standing as equals beside immortals. The human world has forgotten, but vampire society remembers. If word spreads that a Davenport survives, others will come. Others like you? Some. Others far worse. His expression darkened. The vampire courts have fractured over centuries. Some seek to remain hidden in shadow. Others wish to rule humans openly again, as in ancient times. A human with Covenant blood would be valuable to either faction. As a weapon, as a symbol, as leverage, as breeding stock. His bluntness was intentional. The blood exchange has placed my protection over you, but that protection depends on your choices moving forward. Rose absorbed this information with remarkable composure. Then I should learn quickly. Aleksander nodded, seeming both pleased and troubled by her adaptation. Your education begins today. The weeks that followed transformed Thornwood Manor from a mausoleum of memories to a place of renewal. Rose devoured the library's contents with newfound intellectual capacity, absorbing languages and histories that would have taken years to master before her transformation began. Aleksander observed her progress with growing fascination, maintaining his distance even as their blood bond strengthened through proximity. Each night, Rose felt the pull toward him intensify. Her senses had sharpened dramatically. She could hear heartbeats from across the manor, smell emotions in the air, see in near darkness. But most disturbing was her growing hunger, not for food, which she still enjoyed, but for something more primal. The thirst is natural, Eleonora explained one evening as she brushed Rose's hair, which had grown longer and taken on a lustrous quality since the blood exchange. Your body is changing, requiring different sustenance. I am not becoming a vampire, Rose insisted, repeating what Aleksander had told her. No, but neither will you remain human. The Covenant blood creates a third path, what the ancient texts call the Daywalker state. Stronger than humans, able to consume either food or blood, aging measured in centuries rather than decades. Rose met Eleonora's gaze in the mirror. Have you ever seen one? A Daywalker? Not in my lifetime. The last known Covenant consorts vanished 300 years ago during the Purge, when human hunters destroyed many of the old vampire houses. And that is why Lord Voss lives in isolation? Eleonora's hands stilled. He has had many reasons for solitude over the centuries, the most recent being betrayal by one he trusted. Before Rose could ask more, a commotion echoed from below, the sound of the main doors opening, voices raised in formal greeting. Eleonora tensed, her eyes widening. We have visitors, she whispered. Unexpected and unwelcome, I fear. Rose followed her to the grand staircase, where they could observe the entrance hall below. 3 figures stood there, 2 men and a woman, all bearing the unmistakable aura of vampires. Their clothing was modern but formal, their postures radiating ancient confidence. Alexander descended from another corridor, his expression carefully neutral. Lord Marcus, Lady Vivian, Sebastian, this is unexpected. The tallest male stepped forward, his auburn hair gleaming in the candlelight. The Court of Shadows sends greetings, Lord Voss. Your isolation has been respected for decades, but rumors have reached us that could not be ignored. Rumors often mislead, Alexander replied coolly. The female vampire, beautiful in a predatory way, inhaled deeply. Not these rumors, it seems. Her gaze lifted to where Rose stood. We smell covenant blood. After all this time, Rose felt their attention lock onto her like physical weight. Instinctively, she straightened her posture and descended the stairs with deliberate grace, drawing on every lesson in deportment her grandmother had insisted upon. She could feel Alexander's surprise and approval through their bond. I am Rose Davenport, she announced, stopping beside Alexander, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Lord Voss has granted me sanctuary. Marcus studied her with ancient eyes. Davenport, the English line. We believed it extinguished in the last century. Clearly not, Alexander said. As you can see, the situation is well in hand. Your journey was unnecessary. Sebastian, the younger-looking vampire, circled Rose slowly. The blood exchange has already begun. I can smell your essence intertwined with hers, Alexander. Yet the bond remains incomplete. My decisions are not subject to court approval. Alexander's voice carried dangerous undercurrents. Lady Vivian laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. When they involve covenant blood, they become court concern. The treaties are clear. An unbonded covenant human must be presented to the court for consideration. Rose felt Alexander stiffen beside her. There is no treaty clause requiring such action. New provisions were added after your retirement from court politics, Marcus stated. The discovery of covenant blood is too significant to leave to individual discretion. Rose sensed the threat beneath their polite words. These vampires intended to take her from Thornwood, from Alexander. Something primal rose within her. Neither fear nor anger, but fierce determination. I have already chosen my path, she declared, her voice carrying unexpected authority. She extended her hand toward Alexander, palm up, a gesture she had read about in the ancient texts. Lord Voss has claimed protection rights through initial blood exchange. I acknowledge and accept this claim before witnesses. The 3 vampires recoiled slightly, surprise evident in their expressions. This formal acknowledgement, spoken in the presence of other vampires, carried significant weight in their traditions. Alexander's eyes widened momentarily before he took her offered hand, completing the ritual gesture. I confirm my claim and protection. Marcus recovered quickly. An initial exchange grants temporary rights only. Without completion within the lunar cycle, the claim expires. Then we shall complete it, Rose stated with certainty she did not entirely feel. The court expects your attendance at the solstice gathering, Lady Vivian said, her eyes calculating. Both of you, to formalize your arrangement. If our bond is completed by then, we shall consider it, Alexander replied carefully. After tense formalities, the visitors departed, leaving an atmosphere of unease in their wake. The moment they were beyond the property boundaries, Alexander turned to Rose, his expression fierce. Do you understand what you have done? His voice was low, intense. You have forced our hand. The bond must now be completed, or they will return with greater numbers and authority. Would you prefer I let them take me? Rose challenged. I would prefer you not make declarations about matters you barely comprehend. His control slipped, revealing genuine concern beneath his anger. Completing the bond is not a simple matter. It requires ritual, preparation, and intimacy you may not be prepared for. Rose stepped closer, emboldened by the fear she had felt at the prospect of separation. Then prepare me. You have kept me at arm's length for weeks while teaching me everything except what I truly need to know. Because once done, it cannot be undone, he replied, his voice softening. You would be tied to me for your extended lifetime. Centuries, Rose. Not years. And you to me, she observed. Is that what truly concerns you? Being bound to someone you rescued on impulse. Alexander's expression grew pained. I have bound myself to others before. I have watched them wither and die, or worse, turn against me when power corrupted them. The last covenant consort I bonded with betrayed me to hunters 3 centuries ago. It nearly ended my existence. The revelation stunned Rose into silence. Finally, she understood his hesitation. I am not her, she said simply. No. His eyes traced her features. You are something altogether new, and that terrifies me far more than betrayal. Rose reached up, touching his face with gentle fingers. Show me how to complete the bond. Not because the court demands it, but because I choose it. Because in the weeks since you found me, I have come to believe that perhaps this was always my destiny. The tension between them shifted, electric with possibility. Alexander captured her wrist, his thumb pressing against her pulse point. The ritual requires 3 nights. It begins tomorrow at moonrise. Until then, you should rest and prepare yourself. Prepare how? His eyes darkened. Decide if this is truly what you want. Once begun, the ritual cannot be halted without consequences. As he walked away, Rose felt their incomplete bond vibrating with unspoken emotions. His fear, her determination, and beneath it all, a growing hunger that neither could deny much longer. The following day passed in solemn preparation. Eleonora helped Rose bathe in water infused with herbs and petals from flowers she had never seen before. Her skin was anointed with scented oils, her hair brushed until it shone like polished mahogany. The dress selected for the ritual was ancient, silver-white silk that flowed like liquid moonlight, embroidered with symbols Rose now recognized as the old language of blood covenants. You understand what will happen? Eleonora asked as she fastened a delicate silver chain around Rose's neck. From it hung a small vial containing a drop of her own blood, drawn earlier that day. I understand enough, Rose answered. The texts had been explicit about certain aspects of the ritual, the blood exchange, the physical communion, the spiritual binding. Other elements remained mysterious, spoken of in metaphors and allusions. As moonrise approached, Rose was led to a chamber deep within the manor that she had never seen before. Circular in design, its walls were inscribed with the same symbols that adorned her dress. A raised dais at the center held what appeared to be an altar of black stone, surrounded by silver candelabras holding red candles. Alexander waited there, dressed in formal attire that emphasized his immortal beauty. Black tailored trousers and a white shirt open at the throat, revealing the powerful column of his neck. Around his wrist was a silver cuff matching her necklace, containing his blood. Last chance to reconsider, he said softly as she approached. Rose stepped onto the dais without hesitation. I made my choice when I accepted your blood in the rain. Something in his expression shifted, resignation giving way to determination. He extended his hand, and when she placed hers within it, he drew her close. The ritual has 3 phases, he explained, his voice taking on a ceremonial cadence. Tonight, we exchange blood again, deepening the physical bond. Tomorrow we join our minds. The 3rd night, we unite completely, body, blood, and spirit. He removed the vial from her necklace and she did the same with his cuff. They each held the other's blood, a tangible symbol of what they were about to exchange directly. With this blood, freely given, Alexander intoned, I offer protection, loyalty, and eternity. Rose echoed his words, understanding their significance from her studies. With this blood, freely given, I offer devotion, partnership, and renewal. They each drank the other's blood from the vials, a symbolic prelude to what would follow. Alexander then drew her against his chest, one hand cradling the back of her head. This will be more intense than before, he warned. His mouth descended to her neck, teeth sharper than human teeth but not the extended fangs of legend. The penetration was swift, nearly painless, followed by a wave of pleasure that made Rose gasp. She felt her blood flowing into him, carrying her essence, her life force. When he withdrew, his eyes had changed. Midnight blue illuminated from within by golden fire. "Your turn," he whispered, tilting his head to expose his neck. Rose hesitated only briefly before pressing her mouth to his skin. Instinct guided her as her teeth, now sharper than before, broke through. The taste of his blood flooded her senses. Power, age, knowledge flowing into her in a torrent she could barely contain. Images flashed behind her closed eyes. Centuries of his existence, fragments of memory, emotions long buried. When she finally pulled away, gasping, the connection between them had strengthened dramatically. She could feel his heartbeat alongside her own, sense his thoughts at the edges of her consciousness. "The first phase is complete," he said, his voice rough with restraint. "Go rest now. Tomorrow will demand more of you." Rose swayed slightly, overwhelmed by sensation. "I feel everything. It will settle," he promised, steadying her. "Your body is adapting to the increased power in my blood. By morning, you will have integrated it." He was right. Rose awoke the following day feeling more aligned with her changing self. Her senses had sharpened further, and she could feel Aleksander's presence in the manor as clearly as if he stood beside her. More surprisingly, she could sense the boundaries of Thornwood itself, the property lines tingling at the edges of her awareness like an extension of her own skin. The second night brought them back to the ritual chamber. This time, Aleksander sat cross-legged on the altar, gesturing for Rose to sit facing him. Their knees touched as they settled. "Tonight we join minds," he explained. "This is often the most difficult phase. You will see all that I am, all that I have been. And I will see you with equal clarity." "All your memories?" Rose asked, suddenly nervous. "Not exactly. More the essence of who I am, the experiences that shaped me, the choices that defined me. And I will know you the same way." He extended his hands, palms up. When Rose placed her hands in his, he turned them so their wrists pressed together, pulse to pulse. "Close your eyes," he instructed. "Focus on the connection between us. Feel it opening, widening." Rose obeyed, concentrating on the thread of awareness that linked them. It expanded under her attention, becoming a corridor of light between their minds. Suddenly, she was falling forward into Aleksander's consciousness. Centuries unfolded before her. His human life in medieval Eastern Europe, his transformation during a war long forgotten by history, his rise to power among vampire society. She felt his triumphs and failures, his loves and losses. Most painfully, she experienced his betrayal by Katerina, the previous covenant consort, who had led hunters to his sanctuary for reasons of political ambition. Throughout it all, she sensed his fundamental nature, not the monster he believed himself to be, but a being of profound loyalty and honor who had retreated from the world when it repeatedly proved unworthy of his ideals. Simultaneously, Aleksander journeyed through her consciousness. Her childhood filled with books and dreams, her father's love and protection, the cruelty that followed his death, her resilience in the face of betrayal. He felt her determination, her capacity for forgiveness, her hunger for purpose beyond mere survival. When they emerged from the mental communion, tears streaked both their faces. Words seemed inadequate after such profound knowing. They sat in silence, foreheads pressed together, breathing in tandem. "Now you see," Aleksander finally whispered. "Yes," Rose replied. "And I still choose this." The look he gave her contained 6 centuries of longing. Tomorrow, then, the final night of the ritual arrived with a sense of inevitability. Rose entered the chamber wearing nothing beneath her ritual gown, her body humming with anticipation. Aleksander waited, the altar now covered with red silk, candles burning lower around them. "The third phase completes the bond," he said, his voice deeper than she had ever heard it. Body joins with body, blood with blood, soul with soul. Rose approached without hesitation. I am ready. His hands cupped her face with infinite gentleness. Once done, you will be neither human nor vampire, but something between. Your transformation will accelerate. You will rule at my side for as long as we both exist. Promise me one thing, she whispered against his lips. Anything within my power. Promise me it will never be a cage. This bond, this life, that we face eternity as equals. Alexander's expression softened with understanding. I swear it upon my blood and honor. You will never be less than my equal, my partner, my queen. Their lips met in a kiss that ignited the bond between them. Hands removed clothing with reverent purpose, revealing bodies to moonlight and candlelight. They came together on the altar as the ritual demanded, joining physically with the same intensity that had marked their blood and mental communion. At the moment of greatest connection, Alexander bit the junction of her neck and shoulder, marking her with the final seal of their covenant. Rose, driven by instinct older than conscious thought, did the same to him. Their blood mingled and flowed between them, completing a circuit of power that had begun the night he found her dying in the rain. Light surrounded them, emanating from their joined bodies, the visible manifestation of covenant magic awakening fully. Rose felt her transformation accelerate, cells restructuring, power flowing through pathways that had lain dormant in her lineage for generations. When the light finally faded, they lay entwined, forever changed. Rose could feel the fullness of their bond, a living connection that would never fade or break. She could sense the boundaries of Thornwood responding to her will now, acknowledging her as its mistress. It is done, Alexander murmured against her hair. You are mine and I am yours, until the stars burn cold. What happens now? She asked, tracing the mark she had left on his neck, a silver-white scar that seemed to glow faintly with its own light. Now we face the Court of Shadows, he replied. Together. The solstice gathering was held in a vast underground complex beneath London, accessible only to those of vampire blood or their recognized consorts. Rose entered on Alexander's arm, her transformation evident to all who beheld her. Her skin glowed with subtle luminescence, her movements carried preternatural grace, and her eyes now shone with golden fire rimmed by their original amber. Her gown was blood-red velvet, adorned with silver embroidery that matched the patterns of their binding ritual. Around her throat, she wore a collar of silver set with black diamonds, Alexander's formal acknowledgement of their bond. Whispers followed their progress through the grand hall. Many of the assembled vampires had never seen a covenant consort, believing them legends from a bygone era. Others, older and more powerful, watched with calculated interest. Marcus, Lady Vivian, and Sebastian approached, offering formal bows that could not quite mask their surprise at the completeness of Rose's transformation. The court acknowledges the blood covenant between Lord Aleksander Voss and Lady Rose Davenport, Marcus announced, his voice carrying throughout the hall. By ancient rite and modern treaty, we recognize this union. Lady Vivian's smile did not reach her eyes. The last covenant consort did not fare well, as I recall. Let us hope history does not repeat itself. Rose met her gaze steadily. History rarely repeats exactly, my lady. I am not Katerina. The vampire's expression flickered with surprise at the direct reference. Indeed not. She at least understood court politics before attempting to navigate them. I understand loyalty, Rose replied calmly, a concept that appears to have fallen from favor in recent centuries. Before Vivian could respond, an older vampire approached, a woman of Asian descent whose presence caused the others to step back respectfully. Lady Miyako, Alexander greeted her with genuine warmth. It has been too long. Nearly 2 centuries, old friend. Her ageless eyes assessed Rose. So the Davenport line survived after all. Your grandmother would be pleased. Rose blinked in surprise. You knew my grandmother? I protected her when hunters came for your family in the 1940s. She was carrying your mother then, though she did not know it yet. I helped her escape to America. Lady Miyako smiled faintly. She never knew what I was, only that I was a friend when she needed one. The revelation sent shockwaves through Rose's understanding of her family history. She never spoke of this. She would not have remembered clearly. For her protection, certain memories were adjusted. Lady Miyako turned to Aleksander. The Council of Elders requests your presence. Both of you. There are matters to discuss regarding the reemergence of Covenant blood. They followed her to a private chamber where 7 ancient vampires waited. Rose recognized none of them, but Aleksander straightened formally, offering a bow that spoke of genuine respect rather than mere protocol. The elders welcomed Lord Voss and his Covenant consort, announced an elderly-appearing vampire with silver hair. We had not expected to see Covenant magic renewed in our lifetime. It was not planned, Aleksander admitted. Fate intervened. Fate, or perhaps something more deliberate, suggested another elder. The Covenant bloodlines were not meant to fade from this world. Their purpose remains unfulfilled. Rose stepped forward. What purpose? I have read the texts, but they speak in riddles and metaphors. The silver-haired elder nodded approvingly at her directness. The Covenant bloodlines were created as bridges between our worlds, human and vampire. Not merely for alliance or convenience, but because a time would come when neither could survive without the other. What time? Aleksander demanded. The prophecies speak of a darkness arising that threatens both vampire and human existence. A darkness that can only be countered by those who carry both essences in balance. Lady Miyako continued the explanation. The Covenant consorts were never meant to be mere companions or political assets. They were designed to be wielders of unique power, a perfect balance of human compassion and vampire strength. You speak as if we were created as weapons, Rose said uneasily. Tools of balance, rather than weapons of war, corrected another elder. The Covenant magic you now carry allows you to walk in both worlds, to speak for both species, to heal the breach that has grown between us. Aleksander's expression hardened. You knew this when the Covenants were first established. You've had 1,000 years to prepare for this darkness, yet you speak as if it approaches now. Because it does, Lady Miyako said gravely. The signs have been manifesting for decades. Increased hostility between our kinds. Vampire hunters growing more organized, more effective. Human governments developing technologies that could identify and target our biochemical differences. A war is coming, the silver-haired elder stated. Not the kind fought with swords or guns, but one that could end with the extinction of both our species if balance is not restored. Rose felt the weight of history and expectation settling on her shoulders. And you believe we are meant to prevent this? You are the first step, Lady Miyako replied. The renewal of Covenant magic sends ripples through both worlds. Others will follow. Other bloodlines may yet be rediscovered. Until then, Aleksander said, his hand finding Rose's, what would you have us do? Return to Thornwood, the silver-haired elder instructed. Strengthen your bond. Learn to wield the Covenant magic together. When the time comes, and it will come soon, we will call upon you. As they departed the council chamber, Rose felt both burdened and strangely liberated by what they had learned. The purpose she had longed for now stretched before her. Complex, challenging, and far larger than she had imagined. Are you overwhelmed? Aleksander asked quietly as they made their way back through the gathering. Oddly, no, she replied. I feel as if pieces are falling into place. As if everything that happened, my family's betrayal, you finding me that night, was leading to this moment. His fingers tightened around hers. I have lived long enough to know that destiny rarely announces itself clearly. But I also know that in 6 centuries, I have never felt as certain of anything as I am of our bond. They paused in a quiet alcove, momentarily sheltered from the politics and intrigues swirling around them. Aleksander lifted her hand to his lips. Whatever comes, whatever this darkness may be, we will face it together. You are no longer the woman bleeding in the rain, and I am no longer the monster who saved her on impulse. Rose smiled, her transformed eyes glowing with conviction. "No. Now I am the woman who rules at your side. Your equal, your covenant, your queen. Forever," he promised. "Forever," she agreed, sealing the vow with a kiss that carried the weight of eternity and the promise of purpose fulfilled. In the great hall beyond their sanctuary, vampires plotted and schemed as they had for millennia. But something had changed in the balance of power this night. The covenant magic had returned to the world, embodied in the unlikely union of an ancient vampire lord and a woman who had nearly died in the rain. Whatever darkness approached would not find them unprepared. For in saving Rose Davenport's life, Lord Aleksander Voss had inadvertently set in motion events foretold 1,000 years before. The covenant was renewed, the balance beginning to restore. And at Thornwood Manor, a new era would begin. One where a once-bleeding human now ruled as immortal queen, bound forever to the vampire who had found her in the storm.